Thank you very much for joining, everyone. Thank you for joining the Revenue Optimists. We're a space for revenue operations professionals and go-to-market professionals to learn from one another, to help grow their businesses and maybe even their careers. My name is Dave Nelson. I'm the CEO of Traction Complete, where we believe that data is this incredible instruction set for businesses if it's done properly. And we're on a mission to help reduce the data complexity in Salesforce by building apps that help automatically link accounts into hierarchies, match leads to accounts and assign them to the right people, and normalize and deduplicate dirty data. And throughout our work, we get to talk to incredible go-to-market operations folks. And today, I'm lucky to be talking to and learning from Emily Barsky, who is the Global Sales Strategy and Operations Lead at Codat. So thank you very much for joining, Emily. Do you mind telling us about yourself?
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, do you mind telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you said, I lead the sales strategy and operations team here at Codat. And so what my day-to-day function looks like is doing everything possible to make the go-to market teams run faster and run better and improve our revenue engine. So that can include everything from managing our tech stack, like Salesforce and all the other tools we use, process, territory design, commissions, reporting, and all the other amazing things that fall under the umbrella of RevOps.
Holy smokes. Yeah, so you're taking on a ton. Do you mind giving us a little background on what Codat does?
Absolutely. So Codat is the universal API for small businesses. And so we work with our customers to allow them to connect with their small business clients, to pass back and forth accounting information, commerce data, and really speed up a lot of paper-driven processes right now. So one of our most common use cases is lending, for example. So when a small business goes to a bank, if you've ever gone to get a mortgage or any type of loan, you know that it's a lot of paperwork. You have to fill out application after application. And so by using a tool like Codat, a bank is able to plug right into their small business customers' accounting systems, commerce systems, pull that information in real time and assess the riskiness of a loan.
Oh, wow. Holy smoke. I bet you guys have some fascinating data and focus on the economy right now. We can dive into that later, but I can only imagine the insights you guys would get. Maybe before we get into that, is there something that people may not know about you or would be surprised to know as a quick icebreaker?
Oh gosh, something that people might not know about me is that I am a terrible athlete. The last time that I ever engaged in an organized sport was playing kickball, and I severed the ligament in my finger just trying to catch the ball. So I like to say I'm a mathlete, not an athlete, and I stay as far away from organized sports as possible.
Oh my goodness. Well, hey, being a mathlete is probably great for Codat and for your role.
Yes.
So on that note, you mentioned that with your role, you're doing a ton. What does a day in the life look like?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of my favorite things about sales operations is that no day ever looks the same. No hour ever looks the same. And it has to be a switching of being reactive and getting to those big issues that are causing blockers, but also putting on that strategic hat and taking a step back and making sure you're not just putting Band-Aids on things. So for example, today, I started my day with a call with our head of finance and our COO to talk about 2023 commission plans. I met with our BDR director to talk about how to build her a dashboard. And then I had a call with DocuSign to discuss how to improve our integration between Salesforce and DocuSign. So it's always a mix of process, strategy, tech, and it keeps the day interesting.
Well, that's good. I mean, it would keep it live and fresh. What do you think ends up taking up most of your time?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I would think really the reporting is what takes up a lot of time. And it's not just pulling of the actual reports, but sometimes it's doing all of the operational work behind the scenes to make sure that the data is in a good place to do that reporting. So say for an example of that is we want to pull a report of all of our customers within a certain sub-industry. We need to make sure that our sub-industries are all mapped correctly, that none of those companies have pivoted, the information is being updated in a consistent manner. And so, for example, we use a tool like ZoomInfo to do a lot of data enrichment to take a lot of that guesswork out. But yeah, I would say reporting and getting that analytics and information back into the right people's hands is a big part of my day.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah, and I'd love to talk more about ZoomInfo and data providers in a bit. But in the meantime, you mentioned the team doing that reporting for teams. What does that organization look like at Codat? What is the sales of RevOps strategy?
Yeah, so we're a lean, mean team of three. So we have myself, and then we have a sales ops analyst, and she is really focused on the whole world of CPQ. So we implemented and rolled out CPQ in Q3 of this year, and so she really
Oh my
works
goodness.
as our de facto deal desk. And it's so important because we automate all of our client invoicing off of Salesforce data. So these deals need to be booked correctly. They need to be booked in a way that our data can ingest the system. And so she is really in charge of making sure all of our contracts are booking correctly, are flowing through those systems, and all of the other, exciting parts of troubleshooting and helping end users with CPQ. And then the other member of my team is a sales enablement manager. And so obviously a big piece of bringing salespeople on is getting them ramped up, and not just the onboarding, but the continuous learning and upskilling. And so having a dedicated resource to that has been fantastic, because it allows me to not always focus on how to roll out the processes and train the team, but think higher level up and think about, what those processes should be.
Oh, that's great. That's fantastic. So team of three, and it sounds sales focused. So is the structure at Codat that you have like a sales ops team and a separate marketing ops team and CS, or is it all one RevOps
Yeah,
team?
so we're slightly split. So we have a dedicated marketing operations person who looks after HubSpot, which is our marketing automation system,
Okay.
and all the flow of leads and everything until they get into the BDR's hands. Somewhat unique, not really, but BDRs sit under marketing within our organization. And then the sales operations team does handle really all of the go-to-market teams. So our AEs, BDRs, solutions engineers, account managers, our partnerships team. So we actually service all of those teams.
Okay, fantastic. And then does that, you mentioned finance earlier as well. So I kind of imagining it's a combination of the sales operations strategy team, finance, marketing, perhaps even customer success.
Yeah, exactly. We have a dedicated strategy team at Codat here, and they work cross-functionally across a lot of the departments. And so they tend to be really helpful when we're working on bigger projects to help make sure everyone has visibility and understanding into all the stakeholders and the decision-making process. But another key part of our team, which you didn't hit on, is our data and analytics team.
Okay,
So
separate
this
team.
is the team who is in charge of really all of the data that Codat collects and consumes, and how that is pushed through to Looker, which is our BI tool. And so they're a key part of this process, because we, as you know, data is life. And we want to make sure that we're collecting data, we're running analytics off the back of it, and aren't always limited to just the systems we have in place, and can potentially build more sophisticated reporting in a BI tool like Looker when needed.
Gotcha. Okay, and are you using something like a Snowflake before it gets to Looker?
Yes, exactly. Everything goes into Snowflake first, and then it's put up into Looker.
Okay, and out of curiosity, where does that team roll up to, that analytics team? Is it part of the strategy team? Is it separate?
Yeah, it's separate. So we're both part of the operations team. So we
And we're
both report to the global head of operations.
global head of operations. Okay, and so we've been surveying other customers and community members as well to figure out, where does that end up rolling up to? So what is the global head of ops? Is that straight up to the CEO? Is it in part of the COO's
It's
world
the
or domain?
COO. So we had a
COO?
very interesting shift at Codat, probably almost about a year ago now, where most of the sales team was sitting under the CEO, and we shifted it over to the COO as we kind of matured as an organization and grew the sales team more. And so all of us now roll up to our COO. But I think one of the really great things about Codat and startups in general is you're not limited to just working with the people on your team. People in finance, people in marketing, people on our people team, for example. We always are hyper collaborative to make sure that we can get projects done and get done well.
Nice. Yeah, that's key. And we're seeing some companies actually take that and consolidate them. And you could probably argue that you guys are doing the same thing into one kind of revenue operations team that rolls up to the COO and operations.
Mhm.
Whereas others then are kind of staying siloed. Sales is separate from marketing, and they roll up to the CRO, the CMO. I think. Have you had any experiences otherwise?
Yeah, I think it's important to not silo those functions and to really have them be on one team, or even if not on a team, just be constantly collaborating, because you don't want to be doing duplicative work or work that is fighting against each other. A lot of the needs that account managers have will be similar to AEs, or maybe the AEs just aren't asking for it because they don't know. And so you can get benefits from both sides of those requests. And so I think it's always great to have that type of information centralized.
Nice. Yeah, I totally agree. And on that note, some of the times where teams can be kind of bumping heads with one another come down to targets and whatnot as well. Have you guys experienced or learned any tough lessons, or at least found any solutions to have avoiding that situation?
Yeah. I think, things like targets, quotas, territories are an extremely sensitive topic. And more often than not, people just want to have their voices be heard. And so what I've learned is communicate often, communicate early, probably over communicate. If you think you're telling people too much, you're probably doing just the right amount, because there's nothing worse than, delivering a target or delivering a comp plan and someone feeling like, well, this isn't right, and I didn't have a chance to voice my ideas or my thoughts. And the best way to win is to have everyone bought in on the same ideas. And so I'm all about communication and not doing that type of work in a silo.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. We're seeing some teams move towards combined targets, right? So that at the end of the day, it rolls up to revenue, really, because the marketing qualified leads and then sales targets tend to end up butting heads, where there's complaints from the sales team saying, hey, these leads are no good, and marketing saying they're great, but they're not being responded to fast enough, so now they're no good, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's that attribution is so important, but it's also really key to have a culture of we're all rowing the boat in the same direction and we're all trying to achieve the same goal. And so it doesn't always matter how you get there as long as you're tracking in the right way.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Now I know Codat has been growing like crazy. I think you guys have started with one product and have grown significantly. Do you mind telling us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So up until the end of 2021, we were only selling one product. It was our universal API. And then in January of this year, we productized it and decided to launch 6 products.
Holy
And I
smokes.
think the number one lesson that I learned from that is we needed to have a process for how to launch a product, which seems so silly, right? But there are so many different stakeholders that are involved when launching a product. There's things that you have to figure out, like pricing, engineering work, sales enablement, and the education of the team of what is the problem, documentation. We're in the world of APIs, so documentation is key. And so we needed to have a checklist really of everything that needs to happen before these products can even hit launch. And unfortunately, we didn't know that until we'd already launched those products. But now we know moving forward, these are all the steps that you have to take. And these are all of the key stakeholders that need to be involved. And this is even the timeline that needs to happen. I think everyone realizes you can't just say, okay, we're changing prices or we have a new product and poof, it's ready. And so having that readiness timeline, I think, was really important. Another pain point that we had is we like to have a really customer-centric sales process. And when you're going up to 6 products, you're going to have some gaps in knowledge. And so really doubling down on the training of our team, and also getting different voices in front of our team. And so not just having sales enablement or our product managers come in and talk about how they should sell the product, but we put a real focus on having our customers and having our partners come in. So once a quarter, if not more, we'll have someone come in and do a 30-minute fireside chat with our CEO, our CRO, someone who can represent the company, and really just find out how are they using Codat. Because the best way that you can connect with your customer is to understand their pain points and deliver them a solution that is going to help them and benefit them, and make them look good to their organization. And so I think one of the biggest pain points we had was just understanding what that full circle story looks like for all of these new products, and then how to distill that information in our sales org in a way that's scalable. You really want our customers to have the same experience buying a product from AE1 versus AE13. And so you need to make sure that that process is the same for every AE.
Oh, that's fantastic. And that's really hard to do because everyone's got different personalities. People absorb new information differently. They pitch it differently.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm impressed. So you mentioned a whole bunch there. I'd love to dig in on pricing for one. Pricing is this kind of black art of experience versus market research and sometimes guess in the wind. How did you guys tackle that? And maybe just stepping back a little bit further, you went from one product to six. Was that you created five new, or that you took the one product and kind of segmented it out into six separate?
Yeah, we segmented out the existing product into the six. And I think, when we really at a high level started to look at how are we going to price this out, we were looking at, okay, what is the value of the use case as the customer would see it? I think a lot of times people will look at margins and how much does this cost us and all of that to bake into their pricing. But again, having that customer centric model, we wanted to see, okay, what value would this provide to our customers? And if one of our use cases is that a customer is paying, $10 a month for this service and their margins are $30, how can we meet somewhere in the middle that makes sense for both of our businesses? And so that was really the first part about it is like you said, kind of sticking that finger in the air and getting a ball range price of what that unit price should be. And then I think what was really most important was getting feedback from our sales team. I think a lot of time you create pricing in a room with some strategy people and the head of finance, and you aren't really testing it out with what the market is, how the market's going to react. So ask the AEs, ask the sales directors, and make sure you're asking across a diverse group of sellers. You don't just, for example, we sell into a bunch of different industries, a bunch of different size companies. You don't just want to test out the pricing on enterprise level banks because they're going to purchase very differently from the 2-person startup that also needs access to our API.
No
so
kidding.
Having that type of feedback from our AEs who have been on the front line, who have presenting this pricing is so important because it allows us to make those tweaks. And then I think the last thing that is really important is don't get stuck in the mud and feel like you have to follow a pricing model just because you've gotten 80% of the way there and are on agreement. If it isn't working, tear it up and start again. Don't feel like you have to stick with something because I think iteration is key, and you will find in the right spot. And I think the biggest fear we have is, our customers are going to know we're changing our price and all the sensitivity and everything. But we really haven't had any issues with that. And if you need to change things, especially as you said, the economy is changing, the world that we're selling into is changing, and so don't be afraid to pivot and make moves quickly that will benefit the business.
Yeah, that I couldn't agree more, right? Act like that startup that every situation is different. You're kind of testing and refining to find that perfect situation. Now, you guys must have, I'm guessing, originally had one product you sold kind of as a platform. Now you've broken it up into 6. Do you also have combination sales where you're buying 2 of 3 or 3 of 5 or buying all 6 kind of thing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we do have some bundles, and that was definitely a really big question mark in terms of pricing when we first started is, how do we discount these when you're buying multiple and how can we even track this in our backend system to make sure we can invoice for this properly? I think that's also a big piece of it is making sure that you can bill customers in an accurate way based off of our data. And so that was a really big piece of it.
And how did you tackle that? How did, if you don't mind getting into a little bit of the tactics for how you decided on discounts for individuals and I don't know how much you can say or not, but I'd be very curious to hear, is it the more modules, the bigger the discount, or is there some flexibility?
So there were 2 pieces of it. So there is the number of products that you're purchasing, and then also the volume. And so we do our business based on the number of ACCs, connected companies that you're hitting through the API every month. And so you have more levers as an AE to do discounting if the volume is higher or if they're buying multiple products. And one of the things that we actually did for our AEs was gave them a list of discounting levers and put them in order and said, okay, here's the first discounting methodology you can use. This is what we prefer as a business, and went all the way from 1 down to 7. And so the AEs knew what levers they had in their back pocket to run those negotiations, but also knew like at what priority they should be pulling them out based on what we need to do as a business. So I think that was really helpful. Because when you think of discounting, sometimes you're just like, okay, 10%, 20%, this is what the rep was allowed to do. But there's so many other ways that you can structure a contract to be beneficial for both parties that isn't always just about the discount. It can be throwing in extra volume, offering a migration of data, et cetera, et cetera. And so by educating the team on the different levers that they had for discounting, I think that opened up a lot of doors and made them more autonomous in their negotiations.
Nice. And then did you set that up in CPQ so that it was almost like rules engine to say, if you've offered this, then you can offer a 5% discount or not? Or is it more education and awareness?
Yeah, exactly. So it's all set up in CPQ. So when you go into the higher quantities, it automatically drops the price down for you. And then we have the approval rules in place as well. So if you go above a certain dollar amount or a certain percentage, it gets kicked off to your sales director to approve, and then VP and so on. So that's also been a nice value add to our process. Previously, we were doing all of our pricing approvals through emails. And every single time a contract would come in, I would have to like search my inbox and be like, okay, where is the pricing approval for this? Is this correct? And so the fact it's all through a system now in Salesforce has been really, really helpful for keeping us all organized.
I bet. And okay, I've heard that rolling out CPQ is difficult, timely, expensive. How was that process?
Difficult, timely, and expensive. So we started back in February 1st, really, we kicked it off. And we went live in August 9th. I'll never forget the date. It's also my brother's birthday, but it is the day we went live on CPQ. And it was a huge milestone, mostly because at that time I was the only sales ops and Salesforce admin. And so I was largely—
Oh, you didn't have your teammate that's just running CPQ. Okay.
Yeah. And it was extremely challenging. And again, it was another one of those instances where you have to include a lot of stakeholders and get sign off on things before you start building. But it was incredibly rewarding to get it done. And what I will say is test. Like, we had a UAT period. It was only supposed to be 2 weeks, and I wasn't happy with the amount of testing that was being done. And so we actually extended it to 5 weeks. And while that did push our launch date by a few weeks, we reaped so many benefits because we found so many more bugs in that testing period. I think as a sales ops professional, nothing can have your teams lose confidence in you than if you ship a product that's buggy and doesn't work and isn't performing as it should be. So to make sure that CPQ is truly buttoned up, to have the testing done, to have some champion users who had gone through the testing and understand how the system worked, was really, really important to make sure that we could launch and be productive on day one of using CPQ.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. And when you rolled that out, you were the only one. Were you doing it all internally? Were you working with an external SI?
Yes, thank God we were working with an external partner, Globant, who have been wonderful and did a lot of building. Yes. Great.
And so they helped roll it out and get it configured and test, I would imagine. And
yes, exactly. So they did a lot of the actual building and created all of the testing scripts for us that we went through, and even post go live did a lot of support on the bugs and fixing the issues and all of that. But yeah, because we have 6 products, because it's quantity and volume based, there was a lot of complexity in our discounting rules and our pricing rules and all of that. And so they were a key part of this rollout.
I bet. Okay, so you went through that process. It was timely. It was expensive. It was difficult. Was it worth it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It was. We're heading into our busiest time of the year. We're on a fiscal calendar, so December 31st is our year end. And we have seen a huge improvement just in the way our data looks in terms of billing. We've had a number. Previously, before we launched CPQ, we were doing all of our billing manually. out of spreadsheets. And so the fact that we've been able to now automate this process has been a huge win for the business. But now we're also able to run analysis on things like discounts by product. And products by industry, and get it so much more into the data and into the weeds of what we're selling, how we're selling it, and all of that. So it's been a huge win. It hasn't been without its pain points, but I would say all around it's added a lot of value to the company.
Awesome. And if you were to try and quantify it, do you guys do that? How do you like measure success of the projects that the operations teams roll out? Because I can imagine you had to fight for budget to get CPQ approved. Do you end up doing any return on investment analysis or measuring any of that?
Yeah, for something like CPQ, it's a little tough because it is such a big price tag. But in terms of how do we evaluate our work and how it's done, I look at a few different metrics. So first off is we do have a ticketing system. So I look at the tickets that are coming in and seeing, do they need more training? Are they running into issues? What are the bugs? Like, what are the types of tickets that are coming in? How long is it taking us to resolve those tickets? Are they big problems or are they little problems? And then looking at things like sales cycle, conversion rates, and ramp time. Those are areas where we can really have an indirect focus, especially with sales enablement falling under the team, is making sure that people are getting up and running and are starting to hit their goals faster and on target is really important.
No kidding. Absolutely. It can change your whole business model. On that note, how big is the sales team at Codat?
Yeah, so the sales team we have about 25 AEs and 10 BDRs. I would say probably in total we're about 60 people as a go-to market org once you add in the account managers, solutions engineers, partnerships.
Yeah, so it's significant. And did you mention at the beginning that BDRs roll into marketing?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. And so they're doing outbound and inbound, I'd imagine.
Yep, exactly. So I would say they're probably about 10 to 15% inbound, 85% outbound. We're just starting to get our marketing engine running. We're sending email nurture campaigns for the first time. We're just starting to send out client newsletters, which is really exciting. So up until this point, our business has largely been outbound.
Okay.
We're starting to get some of the marketing engine leads into the BDR hands, and hence the move over to marketing to make sure that they were running in sync with each other.
Oh, okay. I have so many questions about that. So you have your BDR team under marketing. They were primarily driving the go-to-market. How was that transition from BDR to AE, marketing to sales?
It's a really good question. I would say, the transition from BDR to AE is probably something that we can work on. Because I think it really differs AE by AE, which I think is normal in every organization. AEs and BDRs always work together, and sometimes they have good relationships, sometimes they have bad relationships. But what we have done is we try to really put all of our salespeople in tighter verticals, so they're really aligned closer with the messaging and the solutions that we're offering to our clients. And so by having the BDRs be hyper focused on just a certain segment of the business, it allows them to hand off more qualified leads to the AEs. So it is going really well. I would say we probably have about an 80% acceptance rate on approved meetings, which is pretty good. And a very low no-show rate.
Fantastic. That's really good. And okay, so you have about 60 people overall across all of go-to-market. Does that include marketing as well?
No.
Okay. How big is the marketing team?
Marketing team, I believe, is 15 people now.
Wow.
Big.
Fantastic. Yeah. And growing, you said, because it was primarily sales driven before, or at least you would include BDR in.
Yeah. We've added a lot of in terms of content. We have 2 event marketing managers now. Someone just specifically focused on growth marketing, so marketing to our smallest customers, who we hope to be our biggest customers of tomorrow. So we've really diversified the way that we're marketing and reaching out to customers.
Yeah, it sounds like it. If you're now embarking on marketing, have you found any successful changes in that go-to-market? Improvements there?
Yeah, I think the defined focus on the specific subverticals has been really important for us. I think previously we had 6 products. There were so many industries. It was easy to kind of just go after the low-hanging fruit of okay, this is a good content story. This is a really hot topic right now. I think by zeroing in our focus on, 5 to 6 sub-industries, 3 to 4 use cases of our product, we're really able to go deep on those topics and really connect with our customers and our prospects. And so for the first time this week, we were actually picked up in the Financial Times.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Which is huge. We're a London-based company, and that's the biggest newspaper for finance out there. So we're already seeing a lot of traction with our marketing, and by being able to go deep on these topics, really establish ourselves as a subject matter expert.
And when did you make that change? When did you go into vertical play versus horizontal?
Yeah, I would say it was probably in about Q3 of this year. So true,
recent.
True startup form. It's still very new. And it was, we realized that actually, funnily enough, in going through a territory exercise, we were recutting territories and going through, and we're like, I don't know if this really makes sense. That should this sub-vertical be under this vertical, and does this really match? And so we actually took us 10 steps back. I won't even say 1 step back, and said, okay, let's look at every, sub-industry and sub-vertical we have, and let's stack rank them. And let's say, okay, and put that score in front of the AEs and in front of the BDRs and in front of the marketing team, and say, these are our top 10 highest priority sub-industries. Just focus on that. Everything else is just noise. And by being able to create that really, really tight focus allows us to be more successful and be closer to the customer.
Awesome. And so when you did that stack ranking or scoring, what did you use? Was it existing sales data to say this is how much they've bought from those industries, or was it kind of propensity or acceleration of new verticals that you're going after?
Yeah, it was really 2 data points. So first is revenue booked historically, and also the adoption of our product. And so how many active connected companies do they have today? How quickly did they grow? What was the scale up? We always say at our company, our slogan is usage is life. That's how we make money. That's how our customers use our product and will be happy. And so we didn't just want to look at the revenue piece. We wanted to look at who was actually using the product and where we could double down to increase that usage and to make sure that our customers are launching successfully.
Awesome. And out of curiosity, what are you using to monitor that usage? Is it all in-house grown, or is it?
Yeah, it's all in-house.
Okay.
And then it's put into Snowflake and then Looker.
But
it also uses the CPQ data, because we have the usage data from our platform, and then we have all of the pricing information from CPQ. And so by layering those over top of each other, we're able to do some really sophisticated, usage revenue forecasting, and saying, okay, based on how this account has grown over the past 3 months and what their price per unit is and where they come out of their contract, this is where we can expect them to be 3, 6, 9 months from now.
Oh, incredible. That's great. Now I can imagine, so if you're using mostly historic data to stack rank those verticals, it becomes difficult to start to break into new verticals. Have you guys encountered that, or is it too fresh yet to start deciding whether to invest into new markets?
No, that's a really good question. I think that is one of the great benefits of the BDRs, is they're on the front lines and they will hear about these new companies and these new sub industries first. But we actually have a process in place. It's basically a checklist of everything that a company or everything that a sub industry would have to hit in order to be moved up into that priority list. So do we have a sufficient pipeline? Do we have, the product and the engineering to bolster it? Do we have a TAM that we're not just doing this for one customer? It has to be for a multitude of customers. Can it unlock a different type of usage that we don't have already? And so there's a whole story and thought process behind it to make sure we're not just throwing in the hottest new technology. We're not just going after crypto, or we're not just going after Web3. It's making sure that it is a really intelligent way of expanding what our strategic account and strategic verticals are.
Well, Emily, thank you so much for running me through that. I could pick your brain all day on this.
Thanks so much, Dave. It was great to join and talk shop with you.
All right. Thanks, Emily. Bye now.